Drums of War, Chapter 12, Tally. In a classified location on a classified planet. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I vote in favor of total war. If there is a possibility of that enslaved to be freed, I can understand if the boots on the ground will do what they can to free them. Yet the atrocities that we have seen deems the exarch non-negotiable. They must be struck down, forced to bend the knee. The enemy has disturbed the beast, and the beast is furious. By the hammers and the sons of Walven, the innocent shall be avenged. Let slip the dogs of war, I say, rip and tear, until it is done. Senator Linda Chambers was saying on the screen. Private First Class Peter George wasn't paying much attention. His little cousin occupied his thoughts. The loss of Robbie hadn't been easy for anybody in the family. But as far-flung as the brothers were, they still had their brothers in service to lean on. Poor Yovdril was alone in his responsibility. Once again, he was grateful to be the youngest. He was about to get his last qualification to be the ASDSS, or more accurately, was waiting on the paperwork to go through. He already knew he qualified. He knew it so well, he could threaten to make himself a problem if he was sent on mandatory leave instead of deployed. He could grieve on the march. The newscast nattered on. If the enemy was motivated by lust for power or money, or even the whims of an evil king, total war would be not called for. All of those things are material, and those who seek or follow them can be reasoned with. Even a mad monarch can see reason when it has no armies left with which to fight. The enemy being faced, however, is none of those things. The ultimate enemy is a god, and unlike mortal kings, they don't see reason. They don't see reason, they don't change their minds, and they don't accept defeat. The only way to truly render the galaxy safe from the threats is by stamping it out utterly. Level 1 repercussions are called for in this situation. Senator Swar was saying from the lectern. Peter was vaguely glad that most of the speeches were short statements of agreement with one of the first two, but wasn't sure whether the vote had any bearing on him. Either way, he dropped behind enemy lines with little support. While I carry the belief that all life is sacred, there is a line in the sand that may not and cannot be crossed in order to be thought of as civilized being. These fell beings have crossed it with a spring in their step. This being the case, while I regret my decision for the lives of the innocent that will be lost in this war, I must vote for total war. And may the gods have mercy on my soul for those I've damned, Senator M.H. Smithson solemnly said, and Peter made to shut it off. He wanted to get into the habit of keeping up with politics, but in this case, it hit a little too close to home. Just then, an old man entered his barracks. The Chimpmando's fur was grey, and if any of it was still black, it couldn't be seen. Deep wrinkles in his muzzle and about his eyes gave him a generally displeased look, and he moved with the stiffness of a man not in possession of all of his limbs. More importantly, the man was a colonel. Peter found himself on his feet, snapping a salute at attention. "As you were, Private." "Aye, sir," Peter said, as he sank down onto his berth again. "That's about 3 hours behind," the colonel said, as he nodded towards the next senator. Peter shut it off as he said, "Aye, sir. I was catching up after PT." "When I was a private, the Senate was the last thing I wanted to watch." "Sir, I wouldn't know what being a private in prehistory is like." "Very funny, Private, very funny. You're waiting on paperwork to go through so that you can get your first assignment, right?" "Aye, sir." "To that end, your scores. Well, to be frank, only marksmen in the Lost Boys score as high as you." "You do not have the Lost Boys ribbon, sir. You're not here to recruit me." No, I'm not. Not to the Lost Boys. The chief citizen is going to announce total war authorization in about 10 minutes. So, with all due respect, can you please get to the point? I'll answer what you want, but I don't know what you're asking." "Ah, too young again. Look, you qualify for advanced deep recon. Total war is going to be authorized, meaning that you will have to account for any and all targets you designate and eliminate while behind enemy lines. You'll have carte blanche to eliminate military, industrial, and political targets under this authorization. Can you handle it?" "That's a very fucking question, sir." "ADR is an all-volunteer MOS." "So is every MOS," Peter snapped back. "Where? However, in this case, the Navy requires that you consent to the nature of the mission ahead of time. not merely consent to service. You will be behind enemy lines for an extended period with limited support from other scouts, so the nature of the volunteering is a little different. I mean, sir, if this is what the Navy thinks I can do to bring victory and justice fastest, I'll trust them. Write your father. He'll be annoyed with us for poaching you. Aye, sir. And the officers' mess aboard the Robin Williams. Major General Eric George was furious. His attempt to select the top-scoring ADSS's trainee had been denied. Apparently, PFC George was already assigned to the ADS battalion. Well, not so much furious as supremely irritated with his rival officers. To his mind, there was nobody in the Republic who had the balls to order his sons correctly, except, of course, for himself, and therefore they should be under his commission. It might have been irrational, but that's how he felt about it. "My son in someone else's commission," Rear Admiral Upper Half Nelson Jock was saying to him over his beer. "I wonder what that's like. Shut up. Roger is under your commission, and in your joint formation. Shut up, arsehole." The aging doggo laughed at his friend, and then said, "Total war. Doesn't change our mission parameters much. Once we push the enemy out of Star Council space, we'll get started on the clans. I hear First Fleet's getting ready to move on clan space. Then Second Army will follow behind them. Long hard work digging them out," General George murmured into his beer. "The Army is good at digging," Admiral Jock replied. "My desk is covered with volunteers for the 2nd Star Rapid Response Force. Same for the Lost Boys. I've never had so many high-scoring greens beg to get plopped onto ships with the highest casualty rates in the Navy. They remember the we sing," the General said. "He'll be okay. He's his father's son." "I remember how much of a moron I was at that age, Nelson. I remember a promising young private who faithfully carried out his duties and looked out for his team, Eric." Major General Eric George downed the dregs of his beer and said, "You didn't see the stupid shit the privates do planetside." His friend laughed and likewise drained his beer. "True, true. Another beer while we wait for the speech." "Another beer. I'm drowning my urge to throttle a certain colonel." At a press conference in Terra, cameras flashed, media employees jostled for position. As the big kitty woman took the podium, she looked weary, but resolute as she took a deep breath and said, "Today, the 5th of February in the year post-colonization of 1960th, the Republic of Terra and her aligned planets does, by supermajority in the Senate and Interplanetary Congress, and so signed by me, authorized by the Navy and Army, to engage in total war protocols. It is with a heavy heart that I lay this burden upon those who now wear the uniforms we once did. We remember the fate of the We Sing. We remember the courage of her crew and the honor guard. However, we remember also the power we wield and the responsibility such power requires. The legislature did not pass this resolution in the throes of passion. The thirst to avenge our fallen does not drive us to this decision. Rather, it is in recognition that justice demands that we do not shirk the fight. Justice demands that we do all that is necessary to end the dark reign of the priest-emperor of this Arxarch dominion. Justice demands that we look open-eyed into the face of evil and unflinchingly pull the trigger. There will be slaves who die as a consequence of this authorization. There will be suffering of those disallowed to take up arms. The innocent will perish along with the guilty. We know this. We accept this upon our own shoulders. Just so, those servicemen now must once more accept the burden of service to the Republic, for now she asks them to risk not only their lives, but their very souls. The good, the courageous, the selfless amongst us march now into the dark grey of confronting the foe who puts a wall of innocent lives between himself and justice. And the Republic now asks her sons and daughters to make a hole through that wall and see justice done anyway, whatever the cost to those sons and daughters. May the bloody hands of our children be washed clean by the tears of her grateful, but let none forget that this is we, here on Terra, who dared ask them such a thing. We remember the Among the Star Tides we sing. Thank you." The chief citizen did not take questions. Even if she did, the media present couldn't think of any to ask. Aboard was speaking softly. "Ambassador, is the threat truly so dire that the Republic should make such a drastic declaration?" Ambassador Trevi gently inclined her head to her guest and said, "Indeed it is." "I am pleased to have fortified the border then. Third Prince Specific said solemnly, "I'm supremely irritated at the incompetence of my ambassador to you." "I still don't think he bothered to read the packet Trevi gave him," said Ambassador Sophie Laurent. The prince groaned and put his head in his hands as Ambassador Trevi said, "I've seen the reports on your fleet capabilities. I fear they are insufficient." He moaned in reply, "Thanks to that tailless moron, we've wasted almost a month. A month we could have been using to get new ships built, to get our current fleet retrofitted, to recruit new Jacobian guard." "I know," Ambassador Laurent said tightly. "He has delayed my mission to warn a lot of you. You don't have the assets to actually run hyperspace interdiction along your entire border, so those behind you will still be at risk. I suggest you focus on planetary fortification. The enemy wants planets intact. You might at least slow them down enough for your neighbors to shore up their defenses." "The Kingdom of Jacobia will hold the line, ambassadors. Have no fear. If we fall, we'll make the invaders pay dearly for it. We have learned our lessons, well, at the Republic's knee. Great Egg, that moron has truly damaged the kingdom more than he could ever know." End of chapter. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.